let me start by stating, and well, I will have some Spanish slides, but I will be talking of everything. Slides are mainly to fix some messages and so that you can see the links to some interesting studies published. So just to say that I do not have any conflict of interest with any association, company, or so I'm talking freely, and I will not mention any product. So this will be free of interest. And I would like to, I find that frequently we talk about research in homeopathy, and we talk about research as we talk about cancer. No, so what is cancer about? Well, there is not one cancer. There are many different types of cancer with different characteristics, different ways of spreading, different treatments. So you cannot really talk about one cancer. So when they ask me to talk about research, there are a lot of types of research, and there are different objectives that can be achieved through research in homeopathy. So I would like to start by letting you people know a little bit what is it about. So when we involve in research activities, we can be talking of mainly two different areas. On one hand, there is a lot of research which is done in an intent to prove which is that the homeopathy is valid from a scientific point of view. That is, we are doing research, we are spending a lot of money and efforts so that the scientific and medical community recognize and understand that homeopathy is a valid therapeutic tool. And on the other hand, there is the research that helps us homeopaths understand better what we are doing and improve our practice. And some studies can achieve both things at the same time, but most of them are for one objective or the other, but not for both at the same time. So when we talk about making proof of homeopathy for the rest of the world, we have to show that, on one hand, homeopathy makes sense. It is plausible. Even if there are people saying that homeopathy is not possible from a physical or chemical point of view, well, we must and we do actually show that homeopathy is valid scientifically and is biologically active, and we can show that with the studies. Then we have to show I'm going to silence everybody.
There is a Shamala Sadishya.
Sorry. So on the other hand, there is a okay. Then homeopathy must be plausible. That means biologically it must exert some action. Then homeopathy must work. That is, it must be not only biologically active, but also must be therapeutic. It must have a therapeutical effect in the patient. And also, it must demonstrate that it is worth, because if it is therapeutic, but there are other therapeutics that are even more effective, then we will never choose homeopathy in face of those. But homeopathy, we can show that it really is worth. That is, sometimes it is the best possible tool to choose, and sometimes there is another tool which should be used, but homeopathy can be a great complement for that. And on the other hand, we said there's research that we do to understand better what we are doing and to do better. And for example, we can publish how we are developing our consultancies with different methods and compare them from a qualitative point of view. That is, compare what kind of results we are achieving and what is the experience of the patients when going through different types of homeopathy or different ways of doing homeopathy. And also, if our main tool as homeopath is the Materia Medica, which is let's say the book that defines for who and for what each remedy is, then we must be able to make it better and better. We must filter what is written but not true, or at least not true anymore, and what we can add so that we can understand better and use better each of the drugs that we are using. And in fact, and lately we have to add some other objectives because we have to use research activities and research review and revisit to fight disinformation, fight the fake news and the non-rationality that is being published everywhere around the world, more heavily in some countries than others. And when saying this, I mean, on one hand, fighting those who are extremely against homeopathy and dogmatically and non-rationally against homeopathy and who deny anything that has to do with homeopathy, and they keep on saying that homeopathy cannot be proved and homeopathy is nonsense and it is just water, and those things have already been proved to be false, but they keep on saying that. And also, I think that we have a duty to fight those who are exaggeratedly in favor, because homeopathy is not capable of everything at any time and with any patient and with any disease. So whoever says that homeopathy itself can cure anything, that's not true from a scientific point of view. So we have to fight also that, because that makes great harm to homeopathy and homeopaths. And there are some websites that I am letting you check down here, such as Homeopathy Research Institute in English and Homeopatia Summa, which means homeopathy adds value. And both of them have a specific site, specific pages to deal with fake news. And also, and this has all to do with the pandemic, we must provide value to society in emergent issues. And nowadays, we know that the pandemic needs homeopathy and needs any kind of treatment that we can achieve. And that means improving immune response and also improve well-being of people and of patients so that they can face better the coronavirus. And also, we know that this pandemic and lockdowns and deaths of beloved ones are doing a lot of psychological harm, and homeopathy can deal with that also. So again, a nice tool that we can make use of, and we have to prove that we can really play a role in helping society and helping people and helping patients cope with that. Then again, we have to start training just now, and we also have a duty to regard and to analyze all the data obtained so that we can do better in future pandemics and future scenarios. Now, I said that research has been done for proving to the community that we are doing nicely. So I want to comment on some of the studies that have been done, and I want to say that research is done at all levels. Sadly, a lot of people do not know that we have a lot of laboratory research done in homeopathy, and there are two fields for that. There's the field of knowing better which are the active principles of homeopathy, what they are made of, how they are physicochemically distinct from other substances and how every homeopathic drug is different from another homeopathic drug. Then, and I want to say that, and that also help us make the proof of concept. In research, in conventional research also, we have to show that some basic concepts that are around the therapeutic, that they make sense. And I want to say, for not only for people against homeopathy, but also people in favor of homeopathy, sometimes they say that we cannot know the mechanism of action of homeopathy. And I want to say, on one hand, that's not true, because already a lot has been proved, and a lot is already known. And on the other hand, at the beginning of my speech, I said that there is not one research, and there is not one cancer, and also there is not one mechanism of action. We do not talk about the mechanism of action of antibiotics or anti-inflammatory drugs, because each of those must have a distinct and unique mechanism of action. And that's the same for homeopathy. We can show how gelsemium is useful in controlling anxiety. And then the mechanism of action in this case would be that the homeopathic drug gelsemium is able to modify the secretion of a neurohormone in the brain. And we show that it is possible because there is an activation of a receptor in the membrane of the neurons of the cells in the brain. And we can show how this is possible. And we show that when we block that receptor, homeopathy does not work anymore. So it is there that the substance makes the action and the effect. Or when we show that, for example, arsenicum album is interesting in some inflammatory diseases, and also it's interesting, very important in India, for arsenic contamination of water, for example. And we have to show that arsenicum album is useful because people get better from their symptoms, but also we have to show how it increases the elimination of arsenic in the urine, and we do that. And also we have to show how arsenicum makes the cells of the body more resistant to the arsenic exposition to arsenic. And we do that, and it is published. And like those, there are thousands, literally thousands of papers published showing how homeopathy works. If there are thousands of laboratory experiments published, those are for something. Those are meant to make us understand better how it's working. So we cannot say we do not know, or it cannot be known. We know that for sure. We know that homeopathy has a specific biological effects, and it has been proved and published. Then we have some toxicology experiments, and those help us understand better how the homeopathic drugs are acting in the body, and they help us also understand how we can find pleiotropic effects in them. What do we mean by pleiotropic? Well, it means that they are able to have effects in different parts of the body, in different systems and different organs. And that's how we can explain the holistic action of homeopathic drugs. Then we have, as I said, we have to show that homeopathy really works, and there are clinical trials. Clinical trials are those studies made with patients in which some of them take placebo, that is, they take an inactive substance, and some others take the real drug, and nobody knows, not even the doctor, not even the one who analyzes the set of data, nobody, not the patient, nobody knows who is taking what. So if there is a change, it cannot be psychological or subjective. It is because an action of the drug. And there is a lot published with favorable results. And I have to say, there are, again, two different types of clinical trials. The ones made for drugs that have an action in a concrete disease or symptom. And there are many that show how homeopathy works very nicely. And I want to show an example, for example, of how Calvimicromicum, homeopathic Calvimicromicum, is able to reduce the secretions in the trachea and bronchus of patients who are intubated, so that we can extubate them earlier and have a better result. And that has been studied in hospitals and in intensive care units, and it has been published several times, and it has been done in by a university chair of clinical chair. So we have to believe that, and if we want to say it's not true, we have to show how it is not true, and that's not been done. And there are like that. There are many studies showing how different concrete homeopathic drugs are able to produce concrete results, concrete effects in different kind of patients and diseases. And there are other clinical trials in which, instead of measuring very concrete things like those, we measure overall results in well-being and health. And those are the ones in which we show mainly how the patients that take homeopathy are able to reduce the consumption of any other kind of drug because they are feeling better. and different symptoms and different diseases they had, they are all of them evolving to better. And that is usually achieved through the use of individualized homeopathy. That is not one drug for one disease, but one drug for each different, a different drug for a different patients, even if they are suffering from the same disease. So uh, tailored targeted therapy. And after that, we have to show that it does not only work in theory or in selected patients, but in real world with the difficulties of administering the drug, taking it, with patients who are not compliant with the frequency of taking the drugs. We have to show that in the real world it works as well. And there are many. Homeopathy is very strong in doing real world observational studies. And those are the ones who really define when you are working nicely with patients, the real world data. That's more subjective mainly, but it shows what happens in the real world. And it links to the epidemiological research, which is what health public authorities used to say, well, not in very concrete scenarios, in very specific scenarios, but in a very global perspective, this therapy is useful for this kind of patients. And I will show you afterwards so that you can take a look and take photos of those. I will show different studies with favorable results in musculoskeletal problems, in infections, upper respiratory tract infections, and also in depression, anxiety, and insomnia. So those are the kind of symptoms actually that we are seeing very often in this pandemic. And there has been done systematic reviews and meta-analysis, which are ways of gathering together all the different research made in a specific area. And even if in Cochrane reviews, and for the people who do not know that Cochrane is like the most credible institution when doing this kind of reviews, again, even if there are people saying that there's no favorable review, let's say, done by the conventional health authorities or institutions, well, there is favorable data in these Cochrane reviews, and it can be shown. It's easy if you know how to look for that. You can easily find that there is favorable data in these reviews. So as I said, homeopathic medicines do have a specific biological effects that can produce clinical positive results and can be relevant for public health. And I want also to share that new research is helping us better understand. So what's being done? For example, when doing research on what is inside homeopathic active principles, we are understanding better how to make the difference between some and others, even if with our chemical methods, it's not easy to make the difference between different drugs. Well, we now have another physicochemical kinds of analysis that allow us understand and see what's happening inside the homeopathic drugs. Also, they are helping us to understand better the mechanism of action. And as I said, big data is going to help us show better how in real world we are really getting results, because with the kind of studies that we are able to develop, it's not always easy to show what is happening. But when we have the ability to use artificial intelligence to analyze big data, then you really can take from all what the population is taking, for all the diseases they have, you are able to pick whatever is useful for you to understand what's going on. And that's going to happen soon, because we are having more and more huge databases of homeopathic cases. And also we are getting better at improving the methods of consultation and improving the data in the materia medica. And for example, before we used to introduce drugs and characteristics of those drugs in our materia medica, which is like the book that has all the drugs we are using. And we did it in a non-statistical way. But now, for some time, we are able to analyze patients who are better respondent to some drugs and the ones who didn't respond so well to the same drugs. And with some statistical methods and with computers, we are able to take out which are the best symptoms and the best characteristics of a patient that makes them very respondent to a specific homeopathic drug. And that's helping us a lot at understanding and also quantifying how to better use each of the drugs in the materia medica for each of the patients we have in our consultancies. And also that allows us to modify a little bit the way that we ask our patients about how they are suffering, so that the way we ask help us better in defining which is the best and the most suitable drug for each of those patients. And for you to be familiar with that, and this is for the ones who are practicing homeopathy, we're talking of the likelihood ratio applied to homeopathic materia medica. So just for you to go through some slides, in the different color, you have the articles that have been published, and all of them are published in PubMed, all the ones that I am going to show. So it's very easy for anybody to locate them and learn more about each of them. So and I hope that you see my little hand over there. We can see all the studies in a kind of physical study of the substances. It's like nuclear resonance imaging that we use for patients, but is used for molecules. But the new tendencies are how we are able to see through specific and very potent microscopes. We are able to see the nanoparticles of homeopathic active principles, even in the most diluted remedies. And there is a new way of detecting which active principles are inside a homeopathic dilution by solvatochromic dyes. That is, we can put like a drop of something into a homeopathic drug, and it changes color depending on what is inside. That's very, very nice, because very visually you can say there is something specific here because it's changing color. And the other one that does not have this homeopathic drug, it does not change its color. So it's very easy to see what's going on. Mechanism of action, and I talked about receptors in the cells. And I also want to say that homeopathy seems to be able, and that's the new research that is being done for some years now, how the way in which the cell uses its genome changes. It does not change the genome, the genes, but it changes the way the cell uses those genes so that it profits better. The clinical trials, in conventional medicine, we are learning to make mixes of these studies, the clinical trials that are able to show very specifically that something is different from placebo, but we have to combine them with other methods that show us how in real life it's going to work. And there are new ways of doing research, and homeopathy is starting to apply this kind of methodology to show how homeopathy works, at the same time with a lot of credibility, with a very nice methodology, and at the same time valid in the real world, showing us that in the real world it actually is useful. And epidemiological studies, they have been done in all over the world, in fact, but specifically in France, there were made, there are up to 13 publications done in the same line of research. And this was, there was an oversight of the health authorities in France. So it's very credible, everything. And it showed how homeopathy is able to decrease the consumption of anti-inflammatory drugs, of antibiotics, and of antidepressants and anxiolytics. There is also some research done in hospitals in the United Kingdom, in Germany, and there is a very nice experience in Italy, in the Tuscany. That is an area of Italy where homeopathy has become, how do you say that, part of the public health system. So a lot more people are able to be treated by this kind of integrative medicine, homeopathy included, and all the data has to be analyzed because that's compulsory for these kind of experiences. So the analysis of this data systematically shows how homeopathy works, and homeopathy sorry, I am out of time already.
You can continue.
Okay, I will finish in a second. So it shows how homeopathy, thank you very much. It shows how homeopathy, along with conventional treatments and homeopathy along with other complementary treatments, is specifically useful for different pathologies, including cancer, but also including upper respiratory tract infection. Sorry. And I said we have to gather experience in order to improve our practice, and there are guidelines to show better how each of our cases has done beautifully or not with the treatment we used. And there is a new method to calculate how each of the drugs in the Materia Medica really links to some of the symptoms and characteristics of the patient, and some others are not as we thought and have to be filtered or improved in that way. And these are some useful links that can be interesting for you in case you are in case you want to go deeper into these kind of things. So that's for it. I would go to to what I said in the beginning, which is there is a lot of kinds of research at different levels, and each of those levels and each kind of research is teaching us something different. And different lessons learned are homeopathy is biologically active, it makes sense, it helps patients, and it helps public health. And we have to learn how to talk about research, and we have to learn how to not be all against or all for anything, including homeopathy. And we have to be rational, and we have to fight for a kind of homeopathy that really helps people and is able to show how it is helping. Thank you.